We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up
and try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit.
Welcome to the Great BA Baking Show. It's Bread Week again. Hi, it's me, Meg, with another side dish episode, keeping the Pod Appétit bread train a-rollin'. Fortunately, Paul Hollywood isn't here to judge my monkey bread. If you haven't watched the Bon Appetit video where Claire makes monkey bread, you might be asking, what is monkey bread and why is it called that? Great questions. Monkey bread is a soft, sweet, sticky pastry made of balls of yeast dough rolled in cinnamon sugar and baked together in a pan to form a loaf. But why is it called monkey bread? I don't have a definitive answer. There are lots of varying opinions on this. Wikipedia says, quote, the pastry being a finger food, the diner would pick apart the bread as a monkey would. Ew. Tori Avey, a popular food blogger, writes, and I paraphrase, the term may come from its appearance with pieces of dough placed next to and on top of each other. The baked loaf resembles a barrel of monkeys or the so-called monkey puzzle tree. Side note, I looked up pictures of the monkey puzzle tree. It looks nothing like monkey bread to me, in my opinion, so whatever. Some suggest that the name originated from 1940s American Southern slang for snack food, monkey food, or it may have been silent film actress Zazu Pitts who popularized this name when she shared her own monkey bread recipe in a 1945 newspaper interview. Thank you, Tori Avey, for that information. Nancy and Ronald Reagan were also quite fond of monkey bread, with their own recipe appearing in the 1987 White House Family Cookbook. The New York Times published Nancy Reagan's recipe, and her explanation for how monkey bread got its name was because when you make it, you have to monkey around with it. Personally, I like this explanation best because I feel like that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with Claire's recipe. So in the Bon Appetit video, Claire says that monkey bread is perfect for holiday parties. She calls it a dessert finger food. And while I'm sure monkey bread would be great for dessert and is probably intended as such, I've almost always made it for breakfast, continuing my tradition of considering anything and everything breakfast food. Challenge accepted. But I like it for breakfast for a good reason, I swear, because it reminds me of cinnamon rolls. They're very similar in flavor profile and texture. They have tons of cinnamon sugar and caramel. And yes, I do say caramel, caramel. I'm not sure which is most right. I guess do at me. Let me know how you feel about caramel. I love the soft, almost squidgy texture of the bread and the gooey caramel sauce. And like Claire, I love eating with my hands whenever I can. Always looking for an excuse to eat finger food. And monkey bread is a dish that I've actually made many, many times before, but always with frozen dinner rolls instead of homemade bread. So I think making this recipe entirely from scratch will be a bit of an adventure. I don't often make bread of any kind, and I've never made brioche before, so this will be a first for me. Honestly, I'm a little bit intimidated. This recipe has a lot of steps and a lot of waiting and even more steps. But the video itself was pretty straightforward, so I don't have any comments on it, so I'm just going to head straight to the kitchen. I'll see you there. Okay, I'm in the kitchen. I made myself some coffee. I think I have all my mise en place. My ingredients and equipment are pretty much ready to go. I'm a little sad though, because usually when I'm cooking, I'm listening to podcasts. So I was really excited to keep listening to the most recent Bon Appetit Foodcast episode in which Adam is in conversation with Brad and Matt Hunziker. And I had to pause it so that I could record this. That's one of the problems with podcasting. You can't listen to podcasts while you're podcasting. Oh well. But in the part of the foodcast that I did get to listen to before pausing it, Adam mentioned Alex Begg's senior staff writer and her weekly newsletter. I could not recommend subscribing to the newsletter more. I love Alex Begg's newsletter. She's a hilarious writer. And in one of the more recent newsletters, she talked with Jesse, who I believe has shown up in a few Bon Appetit YouTube videos. And he said that he tried to make Claire's monkey bread and failed. He called it atrocious monkey bread. It sounded like he had some problems unmolding the monkey bread from the pan, and he thought he might have had some yeast problems. So crossing my fingers that doesn't happen with me because he's probably more experienced than I am. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, looking at the recipe, the first step is to cut some chilled butter into 1-inch pieces and then whip that up in the stand mixer. Okay, so I was using my KitchenAid mixer recently to make something for an upcoming Pod Appétit Christmas special. Stay tuned. But I was really annoyed because the wire whisk attachment, the part where it connects to the mixer, had oxidized, and it got this weird gray powder all over my fingers and I'm sure in the bowl. Really gross. Did my best to clean it up, but I was just super annoyed because the KitchenAid mixer is a pretty expensive piece of equipment, and I went online to see if this is just a problem I was having, but so many customers are complaining on Amazon and on KitchenAid's website. So come on, KitchenAid, please fix your attachment. I don't want gross oxidation stuff in my food. And yes, I did hand wash it. Okay, rant over, mixing now. That looks good. The next step is to scrape it into a medium bowl and set that aside. And I don't need to wash the mixing bowl, which is great because I didn't want to. This butter looks good. Okay, it tastes good too. I sampled some. Nice and soft. What was I watching the other day where someone confessed to eating just straight butter? Oh well, me too. Same. Gently heat milk in a small saucepan over low until warm to the touch, but not steaming hot. It should be 110 to 115 degrees. Okie dokie. So that's 1/3 of a cup whole milk going in. This seems like a good time to have some more coffee. Okay, it's actually already at about 110. That was pretty fast. You don't want it to get too hot because it will kill the yeast. So I'm going to whisk the yeast into there to dissolve. As Claire explained in the video, this is called proofing the yeast, so it should get foamy and bubbly, which shows that the yeast is active or alive. It's alive. So yeah, I hope it's alive because that was my very last packet of yeast. If it's not, I'm gonna have to go to the store. So yeah, come on, yeast, be alive, please. Okay, it says, meanwhile, whisk flour, sugar, and salt in reserved mixer bowl to combine. Okay. Everything's fine. Okay, added my 3 tablespoons of sugar. Now I just need to put the teaspoon of salt and whisk it all together. Oh, and that's the timer for the yeast. Okay, I was really worried. I thought that I was definitely going to have to go out to the store or fudge it or something because I was not seeing the Rorschach ink blot that Claire was describing in the video, but I definitely see it now. We've got some bubbling action. We've got some foaming action. Claire said that she saw Australia. I think I see a heart, like a anatomically correct heart with chambers and stuff. Okay, that's maybe kind of gross, but that's what it looks like. Whisking all the dry ingredients. Add yeast mixture and 4 eggs. Did anyone watch the most recent season of Great British Baking Show? I feel like I'm striving to be a David in terms of keeping my workstation clean, but I'm really an Alice. This is kind of a nightmare, but she got the job done, so I can too. Okay, I've put on the dough hook attachment. It says to beat on low speed, gradually increasing mixer speed to medium as dry ingredients are incorporated. Okay. Come on, mixer, you can do it. I always feel bad when it sounds like it's struggling. Okay, it says to do the next part while the motor is running, so I will be turning it back on in a second, but I shut it off just to talk at y'all for a second. So it says to mix it on medium as I just did until the dough pulls away from the bowl cleanly. It should be smooth and elastic and no longer sticking to the sides of the bowl. It seems to be in that proper consistency, hopefully. So next is to gradually add reserved butter about a tablespoonful at a time, waiting until it is absorbed before adding more. This process can take several minutes, so be patient. Thank you, recipe, for telling me to be patient. So that's what I'm doing next. The motor's going to be running, which makes for super awesome audio, I'm sure. Whew, boy, the recipe sure wasn't kidding about that step taking several minutes, but I was so patient. I waited until every piece of butter was absorbed before adding the next. I did real good, I'm sure. So it says the dough should now be smooth, soft, and supple, but not sticky. And I'm supposed to make a nice little dome out of it, like Claire demonstrated, and put it in a buttered bowl and cover it. So here's hoping it's smooth, soft, and supple. I think this meets all those criteria. Maybe a little too soft. I hope not. It looks softer than the video, but still feels like a pretty good consistency. I've set a timer to check back on the dough after it's been proofing for about an hour. Hopefully it will have doubled in size. But while I'm waiting, I'm going to multitask and I'm going to make the caramel sauce because it says that you can make it up to a month in advance. You just need to keep it refrigerated. So I'm just going to make it a few hours in advance while I'm waiting for the dough to be ready for the next step. My coffee is so cold. The caramel sauce recipe says stir 1 cup water, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and 3 tablespoons of water in a medium saucepan. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, that's the water, the cream of tartar, and the sugar all together. The next step is to bring sugar to a boil over medium heat, stirring occasionally and scraping around sides to dissolve sugar. Normally, stirring can lead to a grainy caramel, but the cream of tartar prevents crystallization. I'm very relieved to read that because, as we all know from the Great British Baking Show, making caramel is apparently an impossible feat, so if they can't do it, I know I can't, but the cream of tartar should help me out. So I'm bringing this over to the stovetop now. Geez, come on, caramel sauce. I'm waiting for a rapid boil. Okay, that looks like a rapid boil. It says reduce heat to medium-low and cook, swirling the pan occasionally for about 4 minutes. The syrup on the edges will start to turn golden. I smell something burning a little bit. I'm just going to assume that was something left over on the stovetop and not my sugar. That's been about 4 minutes. I do see it turning slightly golden. Next, it says keep cooking, swirling as the edges darken to equalize the color and distribute heat throughout the pan until the caramel is amber, another 2 to 3 minutes. Pay close attention as caramel darkens quickly. Okay, roger that. Next step, more cooking, more swirling, until the caramel is dark amber and a wisp of smoke appears. Ooh, how whimsical. That definitely darkened quickly at the end there. I can see why they said to keep an eye on it. So next I'm supposed to remove it from heat, check, stir in 4 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoonful at a time. Mixture will sputter. Okay, we'll see about that. Delicious sputtering. That's all the butter in and it's looking good, real smooth and caramely, perfect color. Okay, next I have to stir in some heavy cream until it's silky and smooth, and then salt, and then let it cool. That is definitely looking silky and smooth as described. I tried a little bit and it tastes so good. It's so creamy and buttery and salty. It kind of tastes like the best Werther's Original you've ever had. Now it just needs to cool. And you know what? I'm feeling more confident now because no matter how that monkey bread turns out, the caramel sauce is going to be awesome. And I can just drown it in caramel sauce if the rest turns out bad. Okay, well, I still have at least half an hour for the dough to prove. So I'm going to come back in just a bit and we'll see how everything's going. Welcome to 35 minutes into the future. All right, so my dough has been proofing for just a little over an hour. It has definitely doubled in size, so I think it is ready to go to the next step, which is punching down the dough several times to deflate. I was really looking forward to this part of the recipe. It just sounds so fun to punch some dough, get out some aggression maybe. Okay, I'm going to turn it out on my work surface and then punch it a couple times, I guess. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. All right, that looks deflated and a bit gooey. As Claire mentioned in the video, the butter, all of those 2 sticks of butter are pretty much at room temperature now. So it's very, very greasy and it's ready to go into the 13 by 9 baking dish that I've already prepped with some plastic wrap. So I'm going to place the dough in there and press it into an even layer, working it into the edges. Get in those corners. Well, that was fun. The dough was a little bit unruly, kept wanting to spring back on me, but I think I got it into all the corners. It's really fun to push around. And next, I am supposed to put it in the freezer to chill for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'm back. About 25 minutes have elapsed with the dough in the freezer. I tested it. It seems like it could firm up a little bit more. So while I'm waiting for those last 5 minutes to pass, I'm going to prep my Bundt pan with the butter and the sugar. So I've got the pan and some butter ready to go. Fortunately, it says in this recipe that it's okay to use a Bundt pan. You don't absolutely have to have a tube pan. Fortunately for me, because I don't have a tube pan, but unlike angel food cake where you absolutely need that tube pan, it seems optional here. It is what Claire uses in the video, and looking at the depth of her tube pan compared to my Bundt cake pan, I'm starting to have doubts as to whether I have the right size of pan. It seems a little small maybe, although the recipe says a 10 cup capacity Bundt cake pan, which I believe is what this is, but I don't know. It just looks small. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to leave some space between the dough and the pan like Claire does in the video, and I guess I'll see if I have extra dough or not. But in the meantime, yep, I'm gonna butter that thing up. I really strongly considered just using spray pan, but I'm already doing so much work on this recipe anyway. I figured what's one more damn thing, right? Okay, that is one buttery pan, but that's okay. I don't want any unmolding problems. And I'm going to add some sugar now, which apparently will also help with getting the bread out of the pan in one piece. The recipe suggests sanding sugar, which I don't have, but I do have that nice big grained raw cane sugar, which Carla used in her banana bread recipe to give the nice sparkly finish on top. So I'm hoping that this will achieve the same effect as sanding sugar. Okay, the pan's coated with butter and sanding sugar. It looks nice at least. So I think it's time to take the dough out of the freezer. Feels nice and firm. Next, I'm supposed to brush the surface of the dough with melted butter and then sprinkle it with the cinnamon sugar mixture. I've already prepped the butter and mixed together the cinnamon and the sugar because I'm supposed to work through these next steps pretty quickly, so I thought I'd save some time by doing that in advance. That's so much butter. I don't think I've ever used this much butter in one recipe before. This is coming to over 3 sticks now? Almost 4 sticks? Yeah, not really complaining. Okay, sprinkling it generously with the cinnamon sugar now. Shaking it around. Tried to pour the excess back into the bowl, but a lot of it got on the counter there. Okay, what do I do next? Invert baking pan and turn out dough onto work surface, sugar side down. All right, and then I repeat with the butter and the sugar on that other side. Oh yeah, nice and lacquered with butter. Next step, use a pizza cutter or a chef's knife to cut dough into a 12x6 grid. So I actually had a pizza cutter. It's one of those relatively useless kitchen gadgets that I probably honestly haven't used in a decade. And let's be real, I shouldn't have been hanging on to it so long, but maybe I should have, because here's the one time in every decade when apparently I need a pizza cutter. Yeah. And also, thank God for Claire demonstrating a 12x6 grid in the video. Of course I can figure that out. But, I was afraid there might have been a Molly and Carla math moment a la the mashed potato episode. Ooh, I'm suddenly very glad I have this pizza cutter. It's working great. Yep, I almost messed up the grid. I knew that would happen, but I got it. I got it under control. All right, those aren't the most even pieces. Claire's dough came out as a much more perfect rectangle than mine. The edges had kind of not gotten all the dough as they should have when I made mine, so it's a little bit lopsided, but I'm just going to work with what I've got. And it says I have to work relatively quickly, so let's get going. I take the separate pieces, roll them into balls, and place them into the prepared Bundt pan. I'll work from the middle out for the more even pieces, and if, as I suspect, my pan is a little bit smaller than it should be, then perhaps I won't use the more uneven, smaller pieces. This should be fun. This will be like Claire's arts and crafts moments in Gourmet Makes. Just quiet time. Yeah, these are already getting a little bit soft with the butter melting now that it's at room temperature again. Or maybe it's just the melted butter on the outside. I don't know. Either way, it's a little bit wetter than I thought it was going to be. Oh, that piece was a big boy. That one's going to be uneven. Oh, well. This is definitely getting soft. I think I have to work faster. And looks, I think, were deceiving. I'm pretty sure I am going to end up using all this dough. Whew, they're all in. All right, the next step is the second proof. I'm feeling so very Great British Baking Show today. Cover the pan with plastic wrap, let sit until nearly doubled in size. Another 40 to 50 minutes. God, why did I decide to do this recipe? Ugh, okay, here we go. Fucking cling wrap. What day is it? What year is it? I've lost track. I'm elbow deep in proofed dough, but after the full 50 minutes of second proofing, I think the dough is finally ready. If I press my finger into it, the dough springs back, but also leaves a slight indentation, which is supposed to signal that it's ready to go. So I'm putting it in the oven now, finally. I'm going to check on that in about 30 minutes, see if it's done. And maybe sometime today, I'll eventually get to eat some. Okay, bye. It's been almost the full 35 minutes of baking time. Not quite, just a little bit shy of that, but it looks ready to come out. It looks beautiful and golden brown. It smells so good. There's such a nice cinnamon smell just all through the kitchen. I was getting a little annoyed, let's say, by how many steps this recipe required earlier, but looking at this beautiful monkey bread, it might all have been worth it. We'll see. All right, taking it out of the oven now. Oh my God, I wish you guys could smell this, but you'll just have to take my word for how cinnamony wonderful it smells. So the next steps are to let it cool in the pan for 10 minutes and then turn it out onto a wire rack and let it cool for at least an additional 15 minutes before serving it. So I'm going to do both of those cooling steps, and then when I'm ready to eat it, I will come back. We'll see if it's worth the effort. Oh, I'm so excited and also tired. Finally, drumroll, the moment we've all been waiting for, or at least the moment I've been waiting for. I unmolded the monkey bread. It turned out gorgeous. I'm seriously so proud of myself. I can't say yet whether all the effort was worth it because I haven't actually tasted it yet, but it looks so pretty. The sugar is so sparkly. I was thinking for a moment, oh no, I should have recorded myself while unmolding because if some sort of disaster happened. It probably would have been funny, but it came out in one easy piece, just slid right out of there. It's all cool now. I took some photos, which was pure torture because I just want to eat it, and I reheated the caramel sauce. Now I'm ready to try some. It's so good. It's just how Claire described it in the video. It's sticky, it's crunchy, it's buttery, it's got that really forward cinnamon flavor. I just love it. The brioche itself is nice and soft and fluffy. When I was pulling out pieces of dough, the entire ball didn't come out cleanly. They seemed to tear in half and leave remainders in the loaf and connected to the rest of the loaf. But I feel okay about that because I saw that in the video as well, so I think I did everything correctly. If you watch the video, that face of bliss that Hunzi makes, that's me right now. I'm really happy with how the raw sugar turned out. It gave it that nice sparkly look I was hoping for, and it lends a sort of crunchiness to the outside. Most of it fell off of the top when I was unmolding and inverting it, but a lot of the sugar stayed on the sides. So that adds nice contrast of crunchy to the softness of the bread. Really good. Okay, I'm going in for another bite. I just have to. Okay, no question. It's delicious. Would I make it again after all of that effort? I think I'm going to have to sleep on that before I can answer it. I'll get one of the other Pod Appétit ladies on the line, and by then, I might have an idea of my final verdict. Okay, I'm back, and I have with me the lovely, the talented LJ.
Hi, and I'm really pleased. I don't feel worthy of the name talented because I've just seen your photos of your monkey bread, and oh my God, it looks amazing, like absolutely stunning. I'm so impressed.
Thank you. I was pretty impressed too, I have to admit. When I unmolded the monkey bread, I was just in awe for a moment. I thought, ooh, it's so pretty.
Yeah, Meg, what you guys will probably see on social media, no. What you guys will probably see on social media is I think I'm going to upload, you've done a little super zoom story of your monkey bread with the little heart super zoom around it. And that's exactly the kind of feeling that you get when you see the pictures. You're just like,
hard eyes. So I drizzled the caramel sauce over it and there was this lovely little slow drip coming down the side. Right. And I just thought I had to capture it.
It looks beautiful. Something that angels have made.
Well, thanks for coming to talk to me about my monkey bread. I wanted to ask you, do you have this in the UK? It seems like a very American thing.
Yeah, no, we don't. I didn't really know what it was until you said that you were going to be making it for a side dish episode. So I looked up at that point and I was like, oh, so apparently it comes from Hungary originally. Like it's a Jewish Hungarian recipe, or at least it was the Jewish Hungarian population that brought it over to the US. Yeah, and I don't think people really make it outside of the US or maybe Hungary but I could be wrong. Maybe there's places in the world that do make it. But yeah, it's totally new to me, but it looks delicious.
I just wanted to assure you that even though it's called monkey bread, there are no bananas in it.
Yes, that was my worry, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's called monkey bread because you pick at it like a monkey. Is that right?
That's one explanation I heard, and the listeners will have heard a few more explanations. So no one's quite agreed on why it's called monkey bread.
Right. Okay. So I guess my major question is, I watched the video that Claire did on making the monkey bread, and I noticed that she made it look super simple because she's a professional chef, but having made a few things as a baker, a home baker at home, I could tell that it all was not what it seemed. So it looked like it was quite a complicated, steppy recipe. So how difficult was it to make? Like, what were your major challenges?
Steppy is definitely a good way to describe it. And the video is so misleading. Not only is Claire super talented, but they condensed literally hours of work into an 8-minute video.
Yeah, the magic of editing.
Exactly. But I'm not kidding or exaggerating when I say that it took me pretty much all day to make this recipe.
Right.
Because you make the original yeast dough, which then has to be set aside and proofed for a while. And then you punch it down and put it into a pan and chill that for a while so that you get a nice rectangle of chilled dough.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cut that, you roll it into little dough balls and put it into the pan for baking. But before baking, it has to proof again.
Right.
And then you bake it and then it cools. And somewhere in the middle there, you also make a caramel sauce. So it's a lot of steps. It's a lot of waiting. And it's a lot of hands-on work too. So I don't think I would ultimately make this recipe again.
Right.
As gorgeous as it is and as delicious as the final product was, it was a whole lot of work. And
yes.
I think it would be impossible for the home baker who doesn't have a stand mixer.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Surely you've got a dough hook and a stand mixer, because otherwise this looks like, I don't even know how you'd go about making it.
No, I don't know either. I literally think it would be impossible.
What did people used to do before stand mixers?
Right? I would be lost without my dough hook for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, there's this one part in the recipe where you slowly incorporate the butter into the dough 1 tablespoon at a time, and you wait until it's all incorporated. This took about 10 minutes.
Right. Even with the stand mixer. Like,
Even with the
how
stand mixer.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of butter in this recipe. I was reading the comments and someone said that it was basically cake-shaped butter, which I thought was a really hilarious description.
That's kind of the perfect way to describe it. And what you don't see right away is that there's also almost a full stick of butter in the caramel sauce as well.
Oh my God. Yeah, because the caramel sauce, they don't mention, like, she just appears at the end with like this jug of pre-prepared caramel sauce. Yeah, and it's just really funny because a lot of the time we see in like the test kitchen videos that they don't like here's one I prepared earlier, or here's like a swap. Like they don't like doing that. So it was quite funny because this is quite an older video.
Yes.
So I wonder whether that was like a hangover from like when they were first starting out and they thought that that's what they had to do. But I think that they've evolved that channel much more now to show kind of the whole steps of the recipes. They rarely seem to do those kind of swaps anymore. But even when you click through to the webpage with the recipe on, they don't show the caramel sauce recipe there either, do they? You have to click through to yet another page to like understand how you make this caramel sauce.
Exactly. The video is very misleading. The recipe page is misleading. Yeah, you have to click through to the caramel sauce recipe. And even then, it's not in your standard recipe format.
Yeah.
It's one of their so-called techniques that
Yeah.
they have on the website. So it doesn't even have the nice list of ingredients and then step by step. It's more like incorporated throughout, telling you how to make a caramel sauce.
Yeah, like a story. Yeah.
Yeah, so getting the recipe itself was maybe a little bit more trouble than it should have been, but the actual execution of the caramel sauce wasn't too bad.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think if I've ever really made a caramel sauce before. If I have, I certainly haven't made many. But it seemed a little intimidating because if you watch anyone attempt to make caramel on the Great British Baking Show, it crystallizes and hardens up. But this recipe has cream of tartar, which is pretty much like training wheels. There's some sort of chemical reaction that really prevents crystallization. So you don't have to be that on top of it to make sure it doesn't crystallize. So I got a nice smooth caramel at the end. Like I said, it has a lot of butter. It has, I believe, half a cup of heavy cream as well. So it's a very rich caramel.
I haven't had dinner yet. I'm so hungry now.
I thought it turned out great personally. Oh, and salt as well, like most Bon Appetit dessert recipes. So they didn't call it a salted caramel, but there was enough salt in there that you get the nice salt flavor as well.
I think all caramel should be salted, right? Like,
I think
just
so
not as
too.
good without it.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually really proud of myself for that too, because I feel like the caramel in the video is a bit too pale.
Right.
It's very pale looking, whereas I think my caramel came out to proper caramel color.
Yeah, your color's really nice and like tan, like it's really golden.
They say it's a little bit optional on the recipe page, but I think it's very necessary. The monkey bread certainly wasn't dry, but it's very one note, I guess I would say, since it's cinnamon sugar, and that's its very cinnamony, buttery flavor. So it was nice to get the caramel in there. You can add as much or as little as you want, so it doesn't have to be overpowered by sweetness.
One question I had was, obviously this dough that you use to make the bread involves using yeast, which is always, I find, a tricky ingredient, whether you're using powdered or fresh. How did you find, have you worked a lot with yeast before? Did you find it difficult to work with?
I don't make bread too often, but I have made yeasted bread a few times. Not enough so that I'm comfortable with it. And this is actually a step that I was a bit concerned about because, as you said, it can be temperamental. Yeast is alive. So if your yeast is dead, or if you so if your yeast is dead, or if you kill it by putting it into warm of a liquid, then you just have to start over. And it wasn't until I was elbow deep into making this and had everything set up and was recording that I realized I only had one packet of yeast. So it was kind of do or die.
Wow.
Fortunately, it turned out. I was also extremely concerned because for a while there wasn't foaming action, and I thought, oh no, it's dead. It's dead.
It's so
with Gabby.
hard. It's so hard to tell. Yeah, it's dead with Gabby. It's so hard to tell. How long do I wait? Like, when does it happen?
And I don't have a fancy proving drawer or a proving setting in my oven. So
who does? Like, I feel like they have that on Bake Off, like it's a thing that it was in most kitchens, but it really is not.
No.
I wish I had one, but I do not. So yeah. So how long did it take you to do the step where you form all of the balls and you assemble? Because Claire seemed to suggest in the video that that was a step that you kind of had to work quite quickly at.
The best I could think was that maybe they didn't want the dough to... Well, I was going to say maybe they didn't want the dough to reach room temperature again. But after you form the balls, it proves for a while. So that can't be it. I think maybe it just might have been that the chilled dough is easier to roll. And it did take long enough that it did warm up slightly. And it didn't get terribly sticky, but some of the last rolled dough pieces were a little bit looser than the original ones.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think maybe they might have even started to prove a little bit while I was doing it. Right. So it kind of punched it down when I was rolling some of those last pieces.
Got it.
So that's the best I can consider why they would tell you to work quickly. And I thought at first that the butter was melting way too fast, but I remembered that I had just put tons of melted butter on both sides of the dough. So it was really the melted butter that was giving it the wet consistency. But,
cool.
Yeah.
From the video that Claire did, when she kind of took out the finished product, you could sort of see like the definition of the balls for the top layer. But it seemed to me that once you'd picked off the top layer, underneath they were more like a one cake sort of melded consistency. So it was more difficult to pick after that. But is that the case, or is it just like I couldn't tell from the video?
No, that's a very accurate takeaway from the video for sure.
Oh, okay.
When you pick off the top balls, even the top balls, I would say that most of the time about half of the ball remained in the loaf.
Right.
They were
okay.
definitely fused together, and the brioche is sort of, I don't know if flaky is the right word, but flaky enough that I don't think I ever got one whole ball in one piece. A lot of it would be left in the loaf for sure. So that's accurate. You could just kind of see the definition between the balls that are all baked together by the little striations of cinnamon sugar.
Yes.
So
yeah.
you can kind of see the definition between them. But in practice, it kind of becomes a loaf.
Yeah. So is it difficult? Because that's how they suggest you eat it, right? Like by picking at it. So is it difficult to do that in practice, or is it just fine and like I should just get over it?
No, it was a bit difficult, especially with the caramel sauce. There's actually, I took some photos that I ended up deleting because when I looked back at the photos, my hands were just covered in caramel.
Yeah.
So I looked like, this literal monkey just picking apart the bread. And I'm like, that's not attractive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I mentioned at the top of the episode that I've actually made monkey bread a lot, but I do the very shortcut way by using frozen dinner rolls. So you already have these preformed dough balls, essentially.
Yeah.
And I find that method, you get a lot more definition between the balls and you can actually pick them apart quite easily.
Yeah. Are they bigger, form bigger
Yes.
balls? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that would probably be easier. Yeah, because I've made like tear and share type dough before, but that's always been with bigger segments, so it's just easier to get that definition. But yeah, no, that's interesting. But did you share it with anyone?
So my husband hasn't had a sweet for about 8 years now, and let's just say the trend continues.
This didn't tempt him to try.
Yeah, I know. He almost broke. He also almost broke on a secret thing we just recorded earlier today.
Right.
He was really close to eating another recipe.
Oh, okay.
So that's my way of saying it's just been me eating it so far.
Wow. So have you been having it for breakfast then?
Yes, I have.
Wow.
I had it for breakfast yesterday. I had it for dessert last night. I had it for breakfast again today.
And is it keeping well?
It was definitely best fresh out of the oven that first day, as I would say most baked goods are. It's holding up pretty well. Definitely better if I warm it up slightly, but it's pretty good. It's getting maybe a little bit stodgy, as Mary Berry might say. So I don't know how much longer it's going to last.
I think it looks like something that you do for like a real special party kind of situation, because it's a lot of effort, right? So you wouldn't want to just do it for any old thing. I feel like if it's something where you've been tasked with bringing a dessert type dish and you really want to impress, it's a good one to trot out because it looks super impressive, doesn't it? Like it looks like wow. And also I feel like it's the sort of dessert that you actually don't want too much of in one time, because it, as you say, it's like somewhat one note. So actually a couple of the little pieces is probably enough. So you want to take it to a place where there's enough people for that to be the case, so you're not like stuck with like a huge portion for each person. I don't know, like a wedding type thing, or like a holiday party or something like that. That seems to be like a winter wedding would be a great, like if they were doing like a DIY cake stand or something, that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, if only I'd known that we were going to a dinner party tonight, I might have held off a couple days on making this.
Yeah, that would be awesome, because it's really impressive. I think it looks beautiful.
When I first inverted it, so it was kind of what was on the bottom of the pan as it was cooking, that looked even prettier, I thought, because it was completely fused. It had all of the sugar on it, whereas a bunch of the sugar fell off the top, or was never on the top, I suppose. Yeah. And so when you first invert it out of the pan like that, it had this really nice geometric shape because of the way that the balls had been put in. It had the nice caramelized sugar on the outside. It looked gorgeous, and I actually almost served it that way until I forgot that I was supposed to turn it once more onto the other side. But it would have definitely been impossible to tear and share if I had left it like that, because there were no balls sticking out to grab and to munch on. So
okay. I think serve it whichever way you think you want to eat it. If you're
Yeah.
tearing and sharing, have it that way. But if you're just slicing, I guess, then, or you don't care about the tearing, you could always serve it the other way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well done. I'm super impressed.
Well, thank you. I guess it was a party for one.
There's nothing wrong with a me party, Meg. It is 2/3 of Meg, after all.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit, a Bon Appetit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Do you love true crime, history, and mysterious happenings? Every week on The Cult of Domesticity, a guest and I discuss a different historical happening, a true crime story, or whatever strikes our fancy. Join me, Courtney, every Thursday to hear some fascinating tales from some fascinating people, wherever you listen to podcasts.